Hey everybody, welcome to Too Much CGI, the show where we talk about pop culture geekery, both retro and today. If you were a kid in the 80s, you're in our club. My name is Bill, and I'm here as always with Scott. How you doing? What do you think of this music?
Hey man, good to see you. I'm really enjoying this. It's like an 8-bit trombone sound I'm hearing. Like,
So this is a sound font. I don't totally know what a sound font is, but it's basically these sounds pulled out of a Donkey Kong Country cartridge, right? The old Nintendo
okay,
or Super Nintendo cartridge.
right.
And somebody has figured out how to put it into a Chili Peppers album. I was listening to the entire Chili Peppers album played like this at work today, and I was like, whoa, I'm enjoying this. So I decided I was going to make Suck My Kiss the intro song.
Beautiful. Well, it's very fitting for today's show.
Well, why don't you tell the audience why, Scott?
Well, today we're going to take it back to the years of 8-bit gaming and do some reminiscing about our favorite and our most despised Nintendo Entertainment System games.
I can't wait to talk about this. When you asked me to put the list together, that was easy.
Last episode we were talking about after the success of the Super Mario Brothers movie this past summer. Now they're coming out. Universal's going to release a Legend of Zelda movie, and we were joking about they're going to do a Super Smash Brothers movie, like put the whole universe together. And it got me thinking, like, yeah, there were some good games that they could tap into. You were joking about Kid Icarus coming out in movie and Metroid, and just got me thinking, like, yeah, those were some good games. Although some of those made my not so favorite list. So ask you to put together a list of your top five and your bottom five, and we'll hash it all out here later on in the main segment.
How many of those old franchises, those old video game franchises, we're talking about Zelda, we're talking about Super Mario Brothers, are going to be relevant today? You know, is Metroid going to matter to the kids today? Is Donkey Kong going to be something they know?
Well, I mean, I think because of Super Smash Brothers, a lot of these characters have remained relevant. They have continued releasing franchise video games for the GameCube, for the Switch. I mean, there's still video games being produced with these characters in them. So I think they're still relevant enough to turn into movies for kids today.
Well, that's enough for now. Tickling your ass with a feather. Tickle, tickle. Everybody, we love that you're listening to the show, but there is a price. Remember, to listen to this show and to not bootleg it, to not be one of those filthy bootleggers, you actually have to just simply tell one like-minded friend about us. We're a word of mouth show, and that really does help us grow. If you want to hang out with us on Twitter, we like to put some news up there, and you can always chat with us, send us some whatever you want to hear on the show. You can send us some tweets
Some
through
X's.
X. Yeah, the X's. You can do it through Facebook. I don't care how you do it. You can go to toomuchcgi.com and you can email us there and we'll read your stuff. Believe it or not, people do write to us. It's amazing. In fact, I'd like to know where you'd like to go next. We have a couple different things we can talk about. We got a what are you watching segment. We got apologies and fuck upperies. We got mailbag. What are you in the mood for before we get to the main segment?
This is like a choose your own adventure you're giving me here. Let's go mailbag. We just talked about mailbag. Let's hear what the people have to say.
I've been getting some positive feedback. Is this true?
Yes. Yes, you have
This
been.
is one of your pieces of mail.
Okay, I know where you're going.
People are actually saying nice things about me. Please tell me everything.
Yeah, man. I heard from brother Tyler and also brother Rob, two people we've never heard from before. Uh,
Welcome to the cult.
yes, they're very, very happy to hear that John Stamos in real life is as big of a douchebag as I always expected him to be.
My John
Your
Stamos
John
story.
Stamos slash Peter Chris, Gene Simmons story? Or was it Ace Frehley? Who was it?
No, it was Gene and Paul.
Gene and Paul. Well, trying to get their autograph only to be bamboozled and shanghaied by John Stamos, who then
Yeah.
unhappily handed the pen back to brother Paul. This was a story that made many a people's day.
Yeah, John Stamos was really upset that we weren't standing out there for him. I've got, that's not the only celebrity story that I have. I can tell you more.
Yeah, why don't you break one off for us? You have one on the top of your mind you can just roll into?
All right. Here's one. You ever heard of the band Everclear? Oh, this is a good one. Let me put this one together in my head. Okay, then I did this, and then
Darn it. Yes, I know Everclear.
all right, I got this story down. Oh, I just thought of two more, dude. This could be the whole segment if you want.
No, we'll do one a week. We'll keep tickling. Do one this
All
week,
right.
and we'll talk about more as the weeks go on.
This one's pretty good then. This one is about the singer of Everclear. I can't remember his name. His name was Art something. Art Garfunkel. We'll call him Art Garfunkel, sang for
It
Everclear.
definitely was not Art Garfunkel, but okay.
Here's the story. Here's what happened. So I used to work in the music business a little bit. I had the day over where the Washington Redskins play. Now they're the Washington Commanders, whatever stadium that is. There was a big music festival there. You remember in Philadelphia, Y100 used to have them. There was like 20
Yes.
bands. Every band was famous.
Yes.
New York had their own. The something picnic. Everybody's got this on the East Coast. I don't know how common it is, but every big city for a while was getting like every band that was big coming to their summer show.
Philadelphia has the Roots Family Picnic.
I remember there was something called the Festival and something like that. Who knows?
Okay.
Who knows?
Regardless.
Regardless. So I was at this thing and I was doing the press room and everybody was getting up there and promoting something. So it finally ends. Alex, whatever, what is his name? Art gets off the stage or whatever. We're all on break at this point. He was the last person to get up there and talk to the press. So we all just start to leave. And I end up getting into an elevator and I look and it's with Art. And there's Art. So I'm like, hey, how you doing, man? Nice to meet you. I love your band. Whatever I said.
Yeah.
I didn't love his band. But he stood there and he looked straight ahead and he didn't move his eyes. I said, oh, hey, man. Hey, I'm just like thinking he didn't hear me. Hey, Art. Hey, big fan. Stood straight ahead. Okay. I'm with my buddy. And you know my buddy, Paul, right?
Mhm.
So Paul's next to me. Paul's not a confrontational person. Bill is a confrontational person. So immediately I'm offended. This guy is too good to talk to me in the elevator.
You've been disrespected
I have been disrespected.
in your mind.
And I'm going to make sure it's in his mind too that I was disrespected by him. Now, I don't totally remember what happened, but I remember I caught. Oh, no, I'm remembering now. I was kind of like, oh, this guy's too good to talk to us, Paul. Like I was getting into one of those modes.
Hello,
Right. And I could see that he heard me and I was saying enough to get him kind of riled up to where he finally, the elevator opens, he storms out. And Paul's like, dude, you almost like started some shit. I was like, well, you fucker, you didn't talk to me. Oh, butt hurt, like I get. All right. So it's about an hour later. One of the things that we have access to is the stage. Don't know how, but we're able to walk into the underground area and come really close to the side stage. The side stage on the ground of a massive stadium filled with people. I mean, if there's 10,000, 20, 50,000, 500,000, I lose count. I don't know. But me and Paul are like, nobody's really watching this side of the stage. There's people kind of meandering, maybe the family of the bands that are up, right? We're in the area we're allowed to be in, but we're taking the advantage of moving a little closer to the stage, a little bit closer to the stage, a little bit closer. And then finally we're on the stage and I'm looking up at the crowd. I remember now the band starts. The band wasn't even started then. Maybe that's how we were allowed to sort of get there. And the band comes out, Everclear starts jamming, they're singing to the crowd. And dude, it must have taken like 5 minutes when Art looks right at me and he sees me. And I just put this big ass smile on, like, I'm here, bastard. I'm here to screw up your, your entire set in front of 500,000 people. And it was this moment of, it wasn't like that. It wasn't the what I gave you. It was actually, oh shit, I've gone too far. This guy's going to call security and get me thrown out of here. So I said to Paul, I said, we got to go. We just got to go. Trust me, we got to go. And I got the fuck out of there. But I was able to, in my head, psych him out in front of everybody because he was mean to be in an elevator.
Wow. Did you fuck up the show?
No. He
Damn.
was a professional. He did great.
I feel like in this story, you were the asshole. You were the one pushing the issue. This guy just wanted to be left alone in an elevator. That wasn't good enough for you.
That's why I started laughing because I'm like, you know what you're doing, Bill? You're telling a story where you look bad. You totally screwed this up. Because when you started it, it was a story where he looks bad. And no.
Oh, Bill. Well, can't win them all.
I remember a few others, like who's the woman from Saturday Night Live? Oh, she had that squeaky voice in the 80s. Blonde hair. She was in UHF.
Oh, you're talking about
Victoria Jackson.
Victoria Jackson, yes.
She was annoyed that she had to sign autographs. So when she got to me, I said, I don't want your autograph. So I got things like that I'll do to some of these celebrities that get a little bit assy on us. I got to say, though, of all the celebrities I've met, 99% of them are very cool. But there's about 5 or 6 that I've got some stories on. And it always is amazing to me because when they met me, they knew what I was doing. They knew I had a music website. They knew that I had audience. They
Right.
weren't afraid to take some risks and say things in front of us, do things in front of us. Kid Rock, like, I've got some dirt on Kid Rock. Not going to put it out because he's got more lawyers than I do. But like, he was daring to even the experience that I witnessed, like to put it out right in front of us. I always wonder, did Art never think that I was going to tell this story?
I don't know.
Probably didn't care. But what if I had a massive audience? What if I was a writer for Rolling Stone?
I can't talk about Art, but I got to say, I don't think Kid Rock is doing a cost risk analysis when he's talking about shit in front of writers or anybody else for that matter.
Fuck all you hoes!
No, you don't think he's correlating the different
Consequences are not something I think that he thinks about often.
putting together pivot tables to try to make his next best decisions. All right. Well, I don't know if that was as good as John Stamos, but that's the first one that came to mind.
That's for the audience to decide. I also think that John Stamos hit home because of just how famous John Stamos is. Now he's doing media tours now with his book that came out. Any other mailbag we can talk about?
Yeah, I got one from Sister Michelle.
Oh, yeah.
So Sister Michelle has written an email about Loki. And in my mention of what am I watching, Loki is on my list. I am really liking this Loki thing. Now it has come to an end.
I've wrapped it up. Yeah, I watched it all.
You got into it.
Yeah, I watched it.
You don't watch the Marvel stuff. You got into the Loki, huh?
I like Loki season 1, so I rolled with Loki season 2. As I mentioned before, I did fall asleep during a couple episodes, but I went back and I rewatched, and I think I got the gist of it.
I'm just like, holy shit. MCU's been crap, 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 crap. And then all of a sudden, once we've written it off, boom, here comes a show that's really good.
Yeah, it was well written. It was well acted. I guess my question is now, and I don't know if we want to get into spoilers, but what does this mean for the future? How do we move forward from this? Do we ever see Loki again?
I have thoughts. Let me read Michelle's email first. I had to chime in with the series finale of Loki. I have to say how amazing this series is and was to bring back full circle Loki's glorious purpose and how crucial this will be in the multiverse conclusion. I believe this will set up Deadpool, which will set up the Kang Dynasty into Secret Wars. I, for one, love the cinematography of Loki walking up the stairs, taking well, we're getting into spoilers there, so I'm not going to do that. I mean, the cinematography, she's calling out how beautiful the show looked. Everything about that show looked great. I was watching it. I remember thinking, we are going back to actual cinema here. Like, this is good filmmaking. The sets looked real. The CGI wasn't terrible. The performances were great. Everything about this show felt like one of the old MCU shows and not one of these sealed tuna sandwiches, that like you open up now and it stinks and the whole thing was just shot in a little box like a sardine can. But yeah, this thing had scale, it had depth. Let me keep on reading. This breathed new life into wanting to see the rest of phase 4. And then she talks more about the spoiler stuff. So let's get into spoilers. Everybody, let's talk a little bit about Loki. If you haven't seen the show yet, you don't want to be ruined, go ahead and fast forward a little bit. But let's take 5 minutes and talk about the show because A, I didn't know you were watching it. I know you don't really watch a ton of the MCU stuff. And B, it was just incredible because in my mind, this is one of their, and we've been saying it on the news, they figure out how to change direction almost every week as they wake up and go, how do we do this? I think the ending of Loki is actually going to change. I don't even think there's going to be a Kang Dynasty movie because what was the last report? It was, they don't know what to do with this guy.
Right.
Well, the last episode of Loki was basically saying that the guy at the end of time is now Loki. It's not Kang.
And he got the throne that he always wanted, but I don't think this is a throne that he wants. This is like a responsibility. I think in that final episode, they gave Loki a character arc where he got the throne he always wanted. It kind of gave that maturity realization of, oh shit, be careful what you wish for. Ruling isn't always the thing. Now he's in charge of all these different timelines. I think it gave his character arc really finality. I don't know that we're going to see Loki. He's almost like one of the eternal gods or something now that like is there like the Watcher was in the What If series. Like he's there as an observer of time, but he's not really a character in the show per se. You know what I mean? He's not getting involved in week to week shenanigans the way he was in this series.
I have a suspicion that they had a certain direction they were going. And then they said, look, we got to get Jonathan Majors out of this. What do we do? Let's quickly pivot on the story. There's an old Loki storyline that has him doing what he's doing at the end of this, I will almost bet $10. I won't go crazy on this. Maybe I'll splurge and say $15. I'll bet that ending was not the original ending. And the reason I think they changed it last minute is because of the Jonathan Majors thing, and because I don't think they want to keep on with the Kang thing. I think they're burning out on the multiverse stuff. The one throwaway line I think in that episode was so important when you heard Mobius say, well, there was one little dust up over in 616 adjacent, but that got taken care of.
Yeah.
Basically, with just shake of the hand, they wrote off Ant-Man. Like, it doesn't even matter. Ant-Man 3 now doesn't even matter. So if this show is that big, then I think they sort of handled the Kang issue. They don't need this Kang dynasty now.
I would literally had like a writer's room, like light bulb moment where it was like, wait a minute, we can get rid of Jonathan Majors and not have to pay Tom Hiddleston? This is fantastic. This is a win-win.
It could be. It could be.
Oh, man. The thing that really brought the Loki, especially the series finale, like when he learned how to control his time slips or his time jumps, whatever they called it, he was able to go back in time to season 1 and just like completely bring season 1 and season 2 together and really make that time doesn't matter. And that was kind of like, whether it's the sacred timeline or this timeline or that timeline or fragmenting timelines, this guy is the master of time. Loki became the master of time. He can go anywhere or any when he wanted, I guess you can say, and just change things in the past to see if it would impact things in the future. And the fact that he kept trying to like hit the reset button and go back and try and do shit, that drew me in and really just sealed this series for me in a very positive way.
My only problem with that is they already did that gag in Doctor Strange.
Yeah, I know, but I feel like this was done better.
That was the other reason I was thinking, see, now they're already rehashing their major movies. That's what made me think they're out of ideas. They're going to have to take a gamble here and go back to that well and, come up with that storyline where he has to keep on going back in time to keep on learning how to build this thing. At one point, did he go back like 1,000? He'd spent 1,000 years learning this. Like, that kills me. He goes, what's 1,000 years to a god? I've been alive forever. But I'm like, that pause. I had to pause at that. I was like, could you imagine?
Right.
You're like, I got to study for 1,000 years. 1,000 years. All right, I'm 3 years in. But after this 1,000 years, I got to go back there and stop that thing from blowing up. But while I'm down here, I think I'll live a pretty nice life, eat some good food, drink some good drink, and just study.
I do love how he came back as like the smartest guy in the room, and everybody's like, "What the fuck is going on around here?" Like Kiwi Kwan's character, OB, and Victor Timely, the other variant of Jonathan Majors, they just look at each other like, "How the hell does this guy know any of this stuff?" But he knew everything. He went back and became truly the smartest guy in the room. He was like a physics major, like a physics master, and he was just like calling the shots and got shit done. Meanwhile, people keep turning into spaghetti strings, which was a fantastic visual. I love that whole
Yeah,
thing.
that's good. I hate the whole idea of thinking that they were just looking at these strands in space and they represent a timeline. Like, I don't really get it. So then Loki grabbed these things that represent a timeline. He turned them green. Like, what is he really doing? Like, when you said he'll have to watch now, is that his job? Just to watch?
He's a peeping Tom.
I don't know. Like, so I was doing some reading. Like, what he actually did was, you notice he took those horizontal timelines and made them vertical, and he did put his green Loki magic on it. He actually turned them into, in Norse mythology, there's a tree that connects the 7 different realms or the 5 different realms I think they have in Norse mythology. So he actually turned the timeline instead of the sacred one timeline into this sacred Norse time tree that branches out whichever way it goes, and everyone has free will.
When are they going to explain that?
I hope they don't. I mean, it doesn't need to be explained. It just is what it is. Just take it for what it is, you know?
Well, I will, because I am convinced this is how they're wiggling out of any Kang-related future with Jonathan Majors. But how about it? MCU suddenly coming out with a show, and it was great. It was a little bit slow for me to get into it. I was like, I don't really know if I want to go back to this well. But those performances, just the way it was shot, everything was great. Just great. I highly recommend it to everybody.
You can't fail with Owen Wilson.
Wow.
I know. He's so good. I have so much fun watching him. And one of the news items as I was going through trying to pick things for today, I guess somebody asked him, they said, are you going to be doing more? He goes, there's no, I can't do it, Owen Wilson. Wow, well,
Well, I'd love to, but there's really nothing on the horizon right now. Never close a door. I mean, if there's an opportunity, I'd love to get into that kind of thing.
Wow.
that's a good impression. Yeah, so no plans to ever see Mobius again, they said.
Mobius M. Mobius. What a character name, man.
Wow.
So what else are you watching?
Oh, we're binging Community.
Okay, I tried this once.
How far did you get with it?
I'm going to say halfway through season 2. It's funny. It's just one of those, like, I started it and then something else came along and I fell asleep during a couple episodes, never went back to figure out where I dropped off. And yeah, I mean, I accepted that it's good. I also accepted that I don't need to see it.
Wow, I'm totally the opposite. I watched it the entire trip to San Diego, the entire trip back. I think we watched a ton of episodes, and I'm not any further than you got. And I guess there's 5 seasons, and I'm only coming to the end of season 2, but I love every minute of it. And I think the show came out when 2015 or 2011, or it's not that old.
No, but that's around the same time. That's the right timeline. Yeah, right around there.
If you want a good example of how far we've come in terms of, oh, you can't say that on TV anymore, just go watch Community. Nothing they said can be played on TV now. The racist jokes in there, I mean, it was all lighthearted and it's a smart show, but yeah, like I don't think anybody will accept 80% of those jokes. And as much as I love Chevy Chase, he's telling all the racist jokes in this show. It's not a good look.
Yeah, Chevy Chase in there, I remember him kind of being like the Danny DeVito or the Frank Reynolds of the Always Sunny world.
Yeah. Yeah, but I also heard that the guy that plays the football player kid, damn it. The guy, he's Miles Morales. I relate everything to the worlds I know. Friday the 13th, MCU, anybody who's ever been in those, their new name becomes
Childish Gambino you're talking about.
Yeah, what is his name?
Oh,
Not Danny Glover.
Not Danny. Donald Glover.
Donald Glover. Damn, he's funny. He is such a good actor. So good. He's a black guy, and he says that Chevy Chase wouldn't stop with the black jokes even when the show wasn't recording. Like he's just telling black. It's like, dude, come on. Yeah, they go, well, how did you feel about that? Like, why'd you put up with that? He goes, I think he was just jealous. Like, here he is, an old guy working on a show where everybody's funnier than him. And I was like, damn, those are fighting words. But when you think about it, everybody on that show is hysterical.
It's great casting.
And Chevy Chase really isn't a standout. So if he got pissed off, I see why. He's got an ego, old classic Hollywood guy, but you're working with a cast now that's funnier than you.
Yeah. Remember the main guy was Joel McHale?
Yeah. Who I don't like really when I see him on stuff, but he's so good at this.
I just remember him from like Talk Soup, like back on the E channel.
Yeah. Yeah. Plus, I don't think anybody's left this show besides Corey Glover. I'm going to give the guy a new name every time. Corey Glover's a singer of Living Color. Donald Glover. I think he's the only one that kind of left and has anything really, right? I saw Alison Brie was on that Glow show.
Yeah, she had that series, which I don't even know if that's still a thing. I think they wrapped that for Netflix, right?
Yeah, I don't hear about it anymore, so it might be done. But yeah, who knew? This show just kind of hanging out back there. It was like last year I found Freaks and Geeks. That was another one that I missed.
That was a great show. Loved it.
Yeah. So if you haven't seen Community,
Yeah.
So if you haven't seen Community, you haven't seen Freaks and Geeks, you are in for some binging.
Yeah. Maybe I'll get back into it. I'll check it out. I'm not really binge watching anything right now or watching anything right now. Just the typical YouTube stuff. Still looking into abandoned buildings and ships and stuff like that, like I talked about last week.
I'm finally stopping to scam fish or whatever. Like, it's starting to run its course. I've only watched 800 of these, and guess what? Every single scammer seems to be from Lagos, Nigeria. It's like, all right, there's no surprise anymore. They're all going to be from Lagos. Well, that leaves only one more section until the main section, and that would be...
So this is a fuck uppery I caught while editing last show. I almost recorded audio to cut in the way you did when you hugely fucked up the Janet Jackson Super Bowl story to intercept the fuck uppery before the publication. You were quizzing me last week about Perfect Strangers, and I said, "Oh, well, I know that his name was Valky Bartakamoose from the island of Mypos, and he lived with his cousin Larry Appleton." I said he lived in New York City. They lived in Chicago. And as soon as I heard it, I was like, "No, like Wrigley Field was like part of the opening credits. Like people are gonna be emailing left and right about this. This is a big fuck up." It was very obvious it was Chicago, but I said New York City, so I take it back. I caught the fuck up after hearing it back during playback.
Not a single person wrote in about it. Nobody
Nobody
wrote in from
cares.
the left. Nobody wrote in from the right.
It's because nobody cares about Perfect Strangers the way I do.
I like that show, but man, that's another one. Like if you never said it again, I probably wouldn't remember it.
Yeah, probably not. Probably not.
All right. Well, what do you think? Is it time to get to the main segment? Talk a little bit about some of them old Nintendo games that we can't get out of our heads?
Yeah, man, we're already at a half hour, so this is going to go on for quite a while here. Now, when I challenged you to come up with your top five and your bottom five favorite NES games, I did say that it had to be something that was part of your collection. So I know, Angry Video Game Nerd on YouTube, he does a great thing of just bashing shitty video games, and he talks about the good ones as well. But to make this not just everybody's fucking hit list, they had to be games that we actually owned, part of our collection, and played, whether we loved them or we hated them, because our parents shelled out $50 for, you know, back in the day, that was a small fortune. So we had to play them if we ever wanted to see another video game in the near future. So let's just start it off. I'll send it over to you. What's one of your top five?
Well, I may need some clarification. So I may
Okay.
have done this wrong. We're thinking 8-bit. In my head, I went right to Nintendo. But what was Atari?
I mean, I guess I was thinking mainly Nintendo. I did the same
Okay.
thing you did.
How about Super Nintendo? I may have a couple Super Nintendos on
That's 16-bit. Now we're getting into the bit wars
there. Yeah.
with turbo processing.
And those stupid little plug-in memory things I had to put into my N64 to be able to play one Star Wars game. You know what I'm talking about.
I had that Rogue Squadron. They had the N64 expansion pack. No, we're talking about regular, good old, classic Nintendo Entertainment System. Came out in 1985, and that huge library of games, some good, some bad. This is what we're talking about.
All right. Well, then I'll start with the game made by Nintendo as a publishing company. So it had that look, that Mario Brothers look, that Metroid look, but I never knew the right way to say it. Is it Kid Icarus or Kid Icarus? And there was arguments in my neighborhood about how to say it. And it was a great game. It was a challenging game. It was just like, the other ones that they made. I spent summers trying to figure this game out. I remember being a kid playing this game and loving it to hell. When you had said, did you ever see that cartoon show called
Captain N, the Game Master.
Yeah, and I'd never heard of it. You said Kid Icarus was one of the characters. Yeah, that was totally off my radar.
Yeah, Kid Icarus, I think, was a launch game. I think this game actually came out on launch day, along with Duck Hunt, Super Mario Brothers. I believe Metroid was a launch day game, but Kid Icarus was one of the original, if not one of the original 8, definitely one of the original 20.
Yeah, I loved it. So I actually own, this, I own an Xbox downstairs that my buddy had helped me with. He was able to get all of the Nintendo games, all of the Super Nintendo games, all of the Game Boy games, all of the Sega Genesis games, because they're all 8-bit, 16-bit. They're so small, you basically put everything ever made on a floppy disk. That's exaggerating a bit. But he put them onto my Xbox. So I can go downstairs and play any one of these games at any time. And I don't. I never think to. I know there's people that love to go play retro games, but I'm at the point now where if I play this now, I'm so bored because it's just not what I've become accustomed to with some of the high-tech games I've grown up with. Would you go back and play some of these?
There are several parties you host at your house that devolved into just you and I playing, at my request, old Nintendo video games, one of which definitely made my list. And I might as
I
well
don't
just talk
remember.
about it now because this is in absolutely no order whatsoever. But Mike Tyson's Punch Out. How many parties did we have at your house that ended in drunken Mike Tyson's Punch Out?
You tell me, because I don't remember one. I don't remember doing this once.
I can think of at least 3.
But I can't believe I didn't put that on my list. How could I have forgotten that?
Yeah. And I don't have my list in any particular order. I wrote them down as I thought of them. I do have some pretty obscure ones on here, but Mike Tyson's Punch Out, or after he was on trial for rape, just regular Punch Out, playing his Little Mac and beating up on either Mike Tyson or Mr. Sandman. Damn, that was, and the replayability. I mean, each boxer had like their own secret to beat them, but you still had to have that timing perfect to punch King Hippo in the belly or to block Bald Bull, or it was E Tiger. Wasn't that one of the guys? Oh, E Hondo, Piston Honda. It was E Tiger, I think.
Sounds right.
Soda Popinski was in there, but they were all like these
Glass Joe.
complete Glass Joe, Don Flamenco. They were all just like these horrible, horrible stereotypes of the country that they represented. And you're just there, Little Mac. You're like a third of their size, punching him in the belly, getting stars using your super punch. It was a great game for a system that only had really, really two buttons.
There was a guy named Kaiser or something. He was like a German guy. Yeah, it was a very stereotypical game. You're
Very
right.
much so. Very much so.
Would that fly today?
No.
That would be called racist today.
There are some microaggressions in there. HR would not approve.
I remember I always thought the ref was Mario.
Yeah, he looked like Mario.
He did. I don't think they've ever said that was Mario. That was my favorite when you knocked somebody down.
Oh, yeah.
You'd hear
The
that
voice-
weird computer voice. Yeah.
The voice acting was so bad. He goes, oh man, but that was a great game, man. And that was one that I've beaten many times. And to beat Mike Tyson, that was a fucking achievement back in the day. That was bragging rights in elementary school.
I forget who was before him, but I always thought that guy before him was harder.
That was Mr. Sandman. That was the guy that became the last guy after they took Mike Tyson's name off of it.
You want another from me?
Yeah, let's give it up.
I must have liked hard games. Kid Icarus was a hard game. I don't have these on here. I'm going to mention them because they were hard games. Metroid and Mega Man were incredibly hard, but this one, I think, was one of the two hardest games I've ever played in my life. Ninja Gaiden or Ninja Gaiden. Here's another one nobody knew how to say.
I pronounced Ninja Gaiden. I never played this game on Nintendo, but when they brought it over to the Xbox much later in life, loved it. But that is historically known as one of the hardest games on the NES.
Yeah, and it's just a side scroller, but it was tough. It was like you had to jump so perfectly with such precision to the pixel, or you'd miss a cliff and have to start everything all over again.
Gotta love them. Yeah, this is interesting because, Kid Icarus, that's another one that I've never played Kid Icarus. I knew of it from posters and the back of the Nintendo Entertainment System box. Never played Kid Icarus. I knew the character because of that cartoon that you mentioned, but yeah, never played that one. Never played Ninja Gaiden either. But you did just mention one of my top 5, Mega Man 2.
Yeah, two in particular was the popular one. I remember that now.
Yeah, and number 2 was huge. For those that don't remember, Mega Man is a humanoid robot made by Dr. Light, I think it was, maybe Dr. Bright. Can't recall. But anyway, you go on to fight the 8 evil robots of Dr. Wily. And each one has like a power. So there's Woodman, there's Airman, there's like a Quick Man that threw boomerangs, there was Flame Man, Bubble Man. Oh, Metal Man was one. And after each time you beat one of these robots, you get to then use their power, if their weapon. And then you just keep progressing. And there was an order where like everybody beat Metal Man first because he threw saw blades, and then saw blades could be used to beat Woodman, and then Woodman could be used to beat Airman. So there was like a strategy to it. Each robot had a weakness to one of the other weapons, but you eventually fight your way all the way to the end, and you have to go through like 6 different levels of Dr. Wily's castle. And the replay was great. The animation was great. The control was great. It was just a great platforming, side-scrolling 8-bit video game. Loved it.
Yeah, I got memories of playing that too. I had a neighbor who had it, and we would always go over there and play it. That one, I wonder what it was about some of these games where I would play and go, this one's too hard and I don't like it. But I'd play another one and go, this one's too hard and I'm going to try to beat it. But Mega Man, I don't remember ever getting past. I don't even think I ever won any one of those games, but I didn't get past anything like you were talking about. I can't remember thinking strategies about go to the tree guy first. So I'm sure I didn't beat that game.
And this is another one that, yeah, I've beat this one multiple times. And like Mega Man, they might still be making Mega Man games for all I know. I know they kept making them for PlayStation. They were up to like for Super Nintendo, they came out with Mega Man X and Mega Man X2 and Mega Man X3, but nothing, in my opinion, while it emulated what Mega Man 2 had, never recaptured that magic the same way.
And the gameplay, the best thing about it, because it was just a Mario game, but you had to jump a lot and shoot. And the
Yeah.
timing of the shooting, that was really what was hard about this game.
Yeah. All right. How about another one for you?
How about Double Dragon on the Nintendo?
Part 1 was fantastic. When they came out with like part 2 and 3, they were terrible. Double Dragon, that initial game, so good. Once you got that baseball bat, oh, how about this? How about once you get enough experience, basically, and you grab the guy by the hair and you throw him over your shoulder? That was the best feeling in the world.
Yeah. Or how about doing the elbow? The elbow took everybody down. You could take down that big guy with the Rice Krispie head. Like he would go right down with the elbow.
Adobo, yeah, he dropped like a freaking bag of dirt.
Can't believe you remember these names.
I played a lot of Double Dragon. I never owned it, but my cousin that lived down the street owned it. He came over, we played Double Dragon quite a bit.
I loved that in the arcade. I would play Bad Dudes in the arcade. The game I was just about to mention that's on the wrong system was Batman Returns. It was basically the Double Dragon game. But it's like when you time your hits just for X-Men, the arcade game was like that. Final Fight, the arcade game. Yeah, they're all based on Double Dragon.
I'll tell you what, you mentioned Batman. There was a Batman game for the Nintendo that wasn't the Super Nintendo version you're talking about. I never owned it, but I rented it from West Coast Video so much that I might as well have owned it. But it was a great, I think it was made by Konami. So it had the same play style as like Contra, which is on my list. It was Contra with like a Batman skin on top of it. It was so good. So jumping ahead, since I just mentioned it, Contra. Konami's Contra, so good. Two soldiers, maybe one of the very first games on the Nintendo where you could like play simultaneously with a partner. So player two's not waiting for you to finish up. You're running side by side. You're jumping up. You're blasting aliens. Everybody's fighting for the fucking spread gun. Nobody wants to get stuck with the freaking flamethrower because it's bullshit. Such a good game. Of course, there's the Konami code. Who can forget up, down, left, right, BA start. 30 lives right from the get go. End bosses were the size of the entire screen. It was such a good game.
Sometimes that game would change perspective. So suddenly it was they were, what's that view? It's not first person, it's third person when you see yourself in front of you. Yeah. So it's a side scroller most of the time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Weren't there balls flying at you at one point? You had to shoot targets. Like that was pretty good.
They would roll out like round cylinder grenades would roll out. So you had to like lay down on the ground and shoot the grenades so they wouldn't blow up when they hit your feet. You had to jump over certain things. Yeah. I mean, the hallway scenes were really good. And then, it's traditionally a side scroller, but there you're like running forward, like towards the screen. And then there was also other ones where it was like an up scroller where you had to like keep up by jumping up ahead. And that's where the fights broke out for me and my brother. Like if one person jumped up higher and move the screen higher before they were on the next platform, the bottom of the screen would kill them. So many fights fucking broke out because of Contra between me and my brother because of this exact reason.
I remember that. I had the same fights with my brother. Wow. Game almost tore families apart.
Konami's now responsible for 60% of family therapy sessions.
Oh, I can't believe I forgot that. I cannot believe I put Tecmo Bowl on here.
Oh, so you like the sports games?
A deep cut. I didn't until I got into Madden later, way later, but I loved Tecmo Bowl. That was just a fun damn game to play.
I know people loved it. I never got into it as a kid. It was never part. You know what game I had? Football. It was just called Football.
Yeah.
And it had the same kind of label as the Kid Icarus did, where it was a Nintendo developed game, but it was terrible. Like it reminded me of like one of those old, before there were home video game systems, you'd have like a little handheld thing with like Tiger with batteries in the back.
Yeah.
That's what this game was, just on the NES. It didn't even make my bottom 5. That football game just meant nothing to me. But I do know that Tecmo Bowl meant a lot to a lot of friends of mine. I know that you could, like, there were no official team names and there were no players. There was no like contract with the NFL or anything like that. But if you played like the blue and orange team, you knew that they were the Denver Broncos. And you play the green and white team. Some people called them the Jets, some people called them the Eagles, but it was thinly veiled who these teams were supposed to be.
I kind of remember those games. My oldest friend, Eric, I think I remember going to his house and he had like a boxing or a wrestling. It was just boxing. And he's like, let's play this. And I'm like, no, I don't want to play this. I want to play skate or die. I want to play something way cooler. He's like, no, this is good. And I couldn't get into it. I remember there was a baseball game. I was like, I hate this.
I had baseball, I had tennis, and they almost looked like Atari games that were ported over.
That's right. They looked that bad.
Yeah, they were just squares.
Do you remember there were some game cartridges that were different shape?
Yes.
And I think they were a new company that came in and didn't get the certification to the Nintendo certification. What was their story?
So there was a whole lawsuit between Nintendo and some other third-party developers that didn't get the Nintendo seal of approval. The seal of approval wasn't just a okay marketing thing by Nintendo. Nintendo actually put a, almost like we were talking last week about like a scrambler chip that HBO was doing for premium cable.
Yeah.
Nintendo put a proprietary chip in their system where if you had a game that was written that didn't have a chip in the game, it would not play. And the reason they did it is they wanted to keep the integrity of their games higher. So they wanted to have some say over what was being played on their system. And I think if you look back, while there are some stinkers, there's probably, for the amount of games that came out for the NES, there's probably more good ones than there are bad ones. So I think it was probably a little successful, but these third party people were just like, no, this is just Nintendo trying to make us buy their chips and use their chipsets and go, and get their hand in everybody's pocket. But I think Nintendo won that lawsuit.
Yeah, I remember seeing a couple of those weird Nintendo games laying around at friends' houses and thinking, I don't own any of these, and they don't look that good anyway. So I thought maybe they were imports. I don't know.
I had one that was shaped weird. It was Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. I think it was owned by, I think it was made by a company called Temco, and it was a very bad video game. Like I owned it, I didn't play it much. It was one where like I wanted to like it because it was Indiana Jones, but it just was a bad gameplay, bad controls, bad everything. Everything that made all these other games good, this game wasn't.
What else is on your list?
I got a real obscure one. I have two more and an honorable mention. RC Pro Am. This one's pretty obscure. This was a radio controlled racing game, and you basically just raced on multiple tracks. It wasn't multiplayer. You played the computer. So it was four cars racing. You were one of the four. And it was almost like early Mario Kart in that you could get bombs or you can get missiles to like blast the other guy and take the lead. There were oil slicks, there were water hazards, there were like little arrows you could drive over that gave you like turbo speed. So it was very much like a non-licensed, non-character based Mario Kart. And for some unexplainable reason, the orange car would just go fucking insane and blast off. And like, if you didn't shoot him at the right moment, and I remember this vividly, the sound would go like, "Woo," and the guy just took off. And you see a map of the course at the bottom, and he's like coming up to lap you before you even made lap one. I don't know what that was about. I don't know if it was because you weren't supposed to win every race. Like I got gold pretty much in every single one. And then there'd be like the one race where this car goes insane, and I ended up with like a bronze trophy. But like the game keeps going on. You start off in like RC trucks, and then it moves over to like RC cars, and then it ends up with like RC Formula One looking cars. But you're always the red car, and the orange car is always the one that just goes absolutely insane. And the green car and the blue car are also just kind of there.
And if I remember right, this was two players.
Yes, but not at the same time.
No?
No, this was not.
There was another, and I love this game too. I'm so glad you mentioned it because I had forgotten about it. But there was another one that came out after it. I feel like it was by the same people who made this, and it was Boats.
Oh, I never played that one.
Maybe that one was two players, and that was a little bit more of a, more, and maybe this was Super Nintendo. I don't even know. but it was the same game essentially, boats, and the set was a little bit different because it was more like swampy, and I remember there were
Sure.
jumps you could shortcut. So it was RC Pro-Am basically next generation. If I could
Okay.
remember the name, I would tell you, but just remember it had boats.
You have any more on your favorite list, or should I roll off another one here?
Well, I got my last one, and then I just remembered one.
Okay.
So let me go with the one I just remembered because we were talking about Contra. There's a game that came after Contra made by Konami. It was called Life Force. Do you remember that?
No, not at
You
all.
could use the same Contra code on it, get your 30 people. But in this case, it was ships. And it was, instead of running as a human, it was just one of those ships shooting a lot of things coming at you, side scrollers.
Almost like a Super R type kind of thing, or like
Yes.
a. Oh,
Like, yeah,
okay.
like 1942 in the
Yep.
arcade. It was just that, but it was space based, and there was a lot of different weapons. You could work together. It was basically Contra in space, and I think I loved Life Force so much that it probably is a better game. So I think we should go down to that Xbox downstairs and
I was just gonna say
boot
that's
up
a
some Life
bold
Force.
claim. That's a bold claim. You better get together and play this.
Yeah, I think I remember believing that, and I loved Contra. I was definitely a Contra kid, but I think Life Force was awesomer.
Damn. Well, here's one. This might be controversial. This was made by Sunsoft, not a company that has a great history.
Is it Master Blaster?
Master Blaster is from the Road Warrior.
Is
This
it Blaster Master?
This is Blaster Master, yes.
Yes! Oh, that was an amazing game. The first time a person could get out of a car and do something independent of a vehicle.
And going back to what you were saying about Contra, how there were different gameplay modes. So the main game, you're driving around in this tank. You're a kid that is playing in their front yard with your pet frog. Frog jumps away, lands on a radioactive something. It's like a trash can that has a radioactive symbol on it. Frog gets gigantic, jumps down a hole. You, the boy, jumps down the hole, finds this tank in this suit, and he puts it on, and the game begins. This is all told through like a 5-panel comic book, no words, just all visual storytelling. Start driving the tank, blasting things and enemies that are jumping around at you and shooting at you. And then you will come up to these small doors where you hit the select button. The little guy jumps out, goes, "Whip," jumps out of the car, goes in the little door, and now you're like a third party overhead shooting where you're blasting guys. And this is basically like Fester's Quest at this point, which is another game that Sunsoft made that gets bombed. But yeah, you go through here, you eventually in these side little rooms find better weapons for your tank. You find lightning weapons for your tank, homing missiles for your tank. You just upgrade everything outside of your tank. Go back to the tank. And this was a really interesting game to me because it was non-linear. Like the doorway to level 4 is actually above the very start of the game, but you can't get there because you don't have the hover for your tank yet. So you have to find your way and battle your way through these other 4 levels or 3 levels before you can get yourself the hover ability for your tank. Then you go backtrack all the way back to the beginning of the game and hover tank up to the top to get to level 4. So in that way, it was almost like Loki, how you're going back through things you already did, now more powerful and now more experienced, and you can get more shit done. And I know this probably ends up on a lot of people's least favorite list. I loved it. I could go back and play it right now. The only problem, I wish it had a save feature. Many of these early games, you couldn't save them. So if you were going to beat this game from beginning to end, you're probably sitting in front of your TV for an 8 straight hour span of time.
Yeah. Wow. Talk about a game I would have never remembered if you didn't bring that up. And it was a game where you needed an issue of Nintendo Power to land into your hands and have the map for the level you were stuck on, which was amazing too, because every once in a while that issue would arrive and it's like, this was the map I needed, But yeah, I do think I beat that game, but I don't know how I did. It's one of those games that are just so damn hard.
I beat it. The music for this game is incredible for an 8-bit. We listen to some 8-bit stuff at the top of the show here, kind of a parody of the Chili Peppers. The music for this game was so good and so driving and got dark at some spots and got really fast paced at some spots, really conveyed the action through the music. There was one part of this game where with your tank, you could blast through a certain wall. If you paused your game while you were inside the wall and you unpaused it, you came back and the walls came back and you were stuck. And this part of the game happened about 3.5 hours into playing it, and there was no way to get out of it. So you had to restart the entire fucking thing. I did this twice in my life, and I can't believe it. I did it the second time just to be like, well, that can't be what happened, right? And I was going to stop playing anyway, so I paused it. And sure enough, there was a spot in this game where if you paused it, you had to turn the whole thing off and turn it over. There was no restart. There was no enemy that could come and kill you to make you go back to the beginning of the level. You were just straight fucked.
Yeah, there were a few of those kind of games, and my last game is one of those games. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles was so damn hard that I remember spending countless hours just wasting time trying to figure something out and just getting so frustrated because I couldn't save it. I remember there was like no save feature, but it was like the hardest game. And there were so many tries and failures where I would just look at the clock and go, well, that was a half a day gone. I guess that was, I got nothing out of this day. That was the most depressing game because it was just it's probably harder than Ninja Gaiden from what I remember.
Well, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles made my bottom 5 for this exact reason. Levels 1 through 3, I played them so much, I can pass them now without losing a single turtle. Like, I've gotten very good at them. Then you get to the airfield and you're walking around the airfield and there's like a maze of going into this manhole and popping up in this manhole. I just don't know where the fuck I'm going. And to your point, like, I never needed Nintendo Power for Blaster Master. Ninja Turtles, I needed it so bad. Like, I never beat Ninja Turtles. I've gotten to the Technodrome, died right away. It was just, I don't know. It was a game of frustration. It was a game I wanted to like because I liked the intellectual property, but the game was just not a great game. And it wasn't because of the gameplay, although like the jumping was wonky and the characters weren't actual characters from the game. There were Foot Clan walking around on the map screen, then you go into the thing and there's just like glimpse dropping bombs and shit like that. So it wasn't like very good use of the intellectual property, but it was just a matter of like, what's the point of this? Where am I supposed to go? You know, that was my frustration with. I wanted to like it and I just wasn't able to. It was just very disappointing as an 8-year-old kid.
I have a memory of the day I beat it. Remember how like beating games was the best thing that's ever happened to you?
Huge.
Isn't that crazy? Like, I still remember how great it felt to win that game. It felt better than me graduating from high school. Like, I didn't feel nearly as good about that as I did beating Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles because I put a whole damn summer into it. And to a kid, it just felt amazing.
I have that memory about Mike Tyson's Punch Out and about Blaster Master, which is probably why they both made my top 5. Because like, I remember like this, like, you did what? And the people are like, no, you didn't. It's like, oh, I absolutely did.
Yeah. Well, that's why it made my top list because that feeling was so good. Yeah, but I can see why it made your bottom list. It could have, if I was in a different mood today, it probably would have made my bottom list.
Yeah. So I have one, kind of two more here that were my honorable mention. And I probably should have started off this segment. We can all agree that like Super Mario 3 was the greatest Nintendo game ever made for that system, right?
I like it a lot. Was it the best? I don't think I wouldn't call that the best.
No, I thought it was the best with the airships and the 7 Koopa kids. And it was a very well put together game. I mean, it was the pinnacle of the Mario series, if you ask me. I didn't even put it on my list because I figured like, okay, well, this goes without saying. Super Mario 3. Yeah, no shit. Enough said. Nobody wants to talk about that.
It felt polished. That definitely is right. It felt polished and it felt like it had done more with the system than any Mario game had done before. So I remember Mario 3 feeling special.
Yeah.
When it came out. Like I remember that now Mario can fly. All right, maybe you're making a good case for Mario 3. That was a great game. But I think I was getting kind of burned out on Mario by then at my age.
Yeah, I could see that. But my honorable mention is actually Tetris and Dr. Mario. So I think for most kids, playing Nintendo was like a solitary thing. Like your friends would do this. Parents weren't really involved. My mom and dad my mom especially, loved the puzzle games. The Tetris, the Dr. Mario, we had both of them. There were times where I had to like fight my mom to be able to play my video games because she was playing this. She also got really hooked on Super Mario 3 as well. So she became a gamer there, but it was all because of the gateway of Tetris and Dr. Mario. And I gotta say, I really did get good at Tetris and also Dr. Mario and the puzzle games. And it's probably why I still enjoy doing like Sudoku and crossword puzzles and nerdy shit like that still to this day.
I like that you said that about your parents playing. My mom used to play Pitfall on the Atari. I remember coming down one day going, "What the fuck is going on? Mom's playing in the Pitfall." My mom can't play Pitfall. She's not a real person.
Let's keep it on course, though. Let's talk about some shit games on this system. I just gave you one of mine with Ninja Turtles. Let me see what you got.
Jaws the Revenge.
No, you're just talking about Jaws, right?
Jaws the Revenge.
You're swimming, you're shooting starfish, you're shooting jellyfish.
That's Jaws the Revenge. That's part
Is it?
4. Yeah. It's an LGN game.
LJN special.
LJN, yeah. So you knew it was shit. I'm saying it this way because we talked about it before on the show.
Oh, we stab the shark at the end?
You have to stab the shark and just drive the shitty little boat around and then press a button at the right time. The shark jumps up, you stab it, and then the game starts over. And you just keep looping this same exercise.
No,
there is a part where you have
the payoff. You're forgetting the payoff.
Yeah, what's the payoff?
The payoff is after you stab the shark and you beat the game, you get to see the seaplane fly in, disappear into a burst of light. Ding! It says the end.
Wow.
That was your reward for playing that shitty game. I actually can go back and still play that game. I beat that game many times. After a while, it's not enjoyable, but this can't make my bottom 5. There's worse games out there than Jaws. But this makes a lot of people's lists. I can't argue.
Really? I'm glad other people have this on their list because this one just gave me nightmares. Like I wanted so bad to play this game. I was getting hooked on it, but it went nowhere. I really enjoyed the swimming and shooting the sharks under the water. I don't know why, but I was just spending so much time and it was going nowhere. There was no end.
How about the bonus level where you flew the seaplane, you drop bombs on jellyfish, as one does, dropping fucking bombs on jellyfish at the bonus stage.
I forgot about that. That's right. So there were 3 things to do in this game.
Yep.
And it would just loop.
That's all it was. It was basically 3 screens. Oh, and God forbid you run into Jaws in shallow water and you can only go like 3 inches in the water and the sharks, you were dead.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, damn that game. How can that not be on your lowest list?
I actually found pleasure in it because I beat it. You know what I mean? Most people didn't have the patience to beat it. I did. It's not on my top. It's somewhere in the middle for me. But here's one that's on a lot of people's bottom 5 list or, shit list. Top Gun.
Oh, I used to play that and like that. Landing the ship, flying the ship, shooting. They didn't like that?
Here's the thing. Most people shit on this game because they had to land on the aircraft carrier. I actually landed on the aircraft carrier every single time. The reason this made my bottom 5 is because it was so fucking boring. So all you had to do from the start of the level, you hold the down button, your ship just climbs in altitude, all the other planes fly directly below you. Every now and again, you'd have to shoot at an oncoming missile so it wouldn't blow you out of the air. Every now and again, you'd have to hit side to side to get out of someone that came up behind you. But at the end, you land it, you go on to the next level. You never had to do it. You never had to fire a shot. Never had to fire a shot, never had to fire a missile, never had to do fucking anything. All you had to do was avoid a few things, maybe 3 things for the entire level. I beat this game. I actually got to the end and blew up I think it was a space shuttle you had to blow up on the launch pad.
I don't remember that much about it. Yeah, it was no Afterburner.
No, Afterburner was great. Remember going to Chuck E. Cheese and Major Magic and playing that? Or I guess it was Showbiz. Going to Showbiz and sitting on that Afterburner and the whole fucking ride moved around. That was incredible.
Oh, when you hit the thrusters and you felt it. It was the first time I ever knew of a game that could do that.
Yeah, for me, Top Gun made the bottom 5, but not for the same reason as everybody else. Everybody else thought it was just a stupid, monotonous, boring game. I guess the monotonous part holds true for me. I just felt it was too easily and too beatable, and all you had to do was hold down. And then the other thing is that when you're trying to land on the aircraft carrier, and the instructions are just like, up, 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 down, 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 speed down, speed down, speed down, low, low, slow, up, 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 up. And it's just you could never do what it was telling you to do. It was telling you to rub your stomach and pat your head at the same time and then switch hands. It was so fucking annoying. But yeah, I mastered landing on the aircraft carrier.
With the thruster sounds, it just sounded like white noise.
Yeah. It really was like putting me to sleep. Absolutely.
Well, to move this along a bit, I have 3 more on my bottom list. I'm gonna put 2 together. So there was an X-Men game made by
Yeah.
our friends again, LJN.
LJN.
It was just so awful. I don't even understand it. It was some kind of Zelda looking thing, but the characters and sprites were smaller. And then there was X-Men versus Spider-Man. I was a huge Spider-Man fan, and this was a game that brought the X-Men in, but it was not every character, a handful of characters, Spider-Man, Wolverine got one, Cyclops got one, Storm got one, maybe another one. And they all got their own levels. Every level wasn't just frustrating, it was so boringly frustrating. There was only one
Yeah.
good one where Juggernaut chased in, you were Wolverine, but the rest were like impossibly hard and just boring to do over and over and over.
So this game also came out on the Super Nintendo. I mean, I think this may have been one of those games. Remember there was like that period like in maybe 94, 90, early 95 where they would like release a game on both systems. I played this game because it was Superman and the X-Men in Arcade's Revenge.
Spider-Man and the X-Men, Arcade's Revenge. That's this one.
Spider-Man
And you
and the
know what?
X-Men in Arcade's Revenge. Yep.
You got me. This is Super Nintendo. Now that you say it. Damn it.
But it may have been both. This may have been in that period where they released it on both systems. So I'm not calling you out.
It was a stinker.
It was. And I wanted to like it.
You want my last one?
Yeah, give it to me.
Friday the 13th, the game.
Okay, this is good. This is good. So go ahead, talk about your Friday the 13th. I have one that is basically a clone of it.
Really? All right. So this is it's a side scroller. You're just a camper. You're running around. You don't even know why. It makes no sense. There's birds. I think there's a snake you got to jump. So it's that game. And then you got to go into a cabin and look around. And this isn't like, this is like way before Doom. You know, you're not walking around like that. You just press down and then the next screen loads. And maybe you find Jason. I don't even remember the point. I just remember aimlessly walking around and throwing rocks at birds and dumb things like this. I hated it. And I was like into the movies at that time. They were scary. So I wanted this game to be good. I bought it. Waste of damn money. You know, I don't even know where it was all the Christmas money I had gotten from the last 5 years.
Sure.
And I went and spent it on this turd.
Yep. The clone of it. The Goonies.
Oh, I
It
remember
was the
that.
exact same thing. You're jumping side to side. There's snakes. I think your weapon's a yo-yo. You play as Mikey. And then you go into these rooms and you're looking around and like you could like I think the one room you like hit the wall with a hammer and a safe appeared and then you get a map. The only good thing about it was they had a pretty good rendition of 8-bit music of Cyndi Lauper's Goonies theme.
Yeah.
That was good, but the gameplay was identical. May have even been the same producer as Friday the 13th. But yeah, the way you're looking for Jason in there, you're trying to rescue the other Goonies. Yeah, it's just a bad game. The reason it was on there, I wanted to like it, much like you. The intellectual property drew me in. I didn't know what the fuck the point of the game was.
Yeah.
It was not entertaining.
No, it's awful. Awful. I still have trauma.
Then you would die and there'd be like an 8-bit Mother Fratelli there. And it was like the most disturbing 8-bit image I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah, something like that. So at the same time, I was playing Commodore games. There was a Goonies Commodore game that was awesome. Awesome. There was a Commodore Friday the 13th game that was awesome. So some of these blur in with that now. That's a whole other universe we haven't even gotten into.
All right, I have 2 more here. Ghosts and Goblins. And Ghosts and Goblins was a game that friends of mine had, and I really enjoyed playing it at their house. And then I got it, and I realized I can't beat the second level.
Yeah, hard.
That's as far as it was a very, very difficult game. You would run around as a guy throwing like lances and then daggers and then fire crosses, I think was a thing at one point, or maybe it was just like a boomerang cross or something. But you're trying to kill zombies and a demon steals your girlfriend. And I never got past level 3, I don't think. I think I got to level 3 once, and I was like, this is stupid.
I always they had that Mario Brothers, get big, get small, eat the mushroom, get big. In this case, it was the armor. I always when his armor came off and you saw his underwear. I like
You get
that.
naked.
I like that. I like that.
All right, my last one here, Back to the Future,
Hmm. Never played that one.
made by our friends at LJN.
Oh, I gotta get it. I gotta get it.
They got all that intellectual property and did absolutely nothing with it. The character did not look like Michael J. Fox. There was some skateboarding. You're running through the streets. Bees attack you. Hula hoop girls attack you. There's guys moving mirrors back and forth that you run into. It's one where like the screen moves by itself and you have to keep up. And it's just so dumb. And then there's like bonus levels at the end. And then all you do is run through the streets of Hill Valley. And then at one point, and I've gotten there at one time, you get the DeLorean, and the DeLorean's racing up the same street, and lightning's coming down from all different sides. Now, I don't know if I'm supposed to avoid the lightning or hit the lightning because the lightning is what gets you 1.21 gigawatts. And, like I'm hitting the lightning, but the lightning's slowing me down. So, like, your speedometer is going down. So then I'm like, oh, I can't hit the lightning. I'm supposed to avoid that. So I do, but now it's too late. And now it's like, oh, you're back at the beginning again. I've never seen the DeLorean again. Got there one time, didn't know what the fuck to do. I'm not going through it again. I hate that game.
That's too much stress on a kid.
Right?
Bastard adults making these games.
Ah, well. Last one I had here, and this will tie into one of our news stories, so I'll share it. Bart versus the Space Mutants. That was my last one here. Much like these other things, I like the intellectual property. The game was just poor, dumb.
I can't believe there was a Simpsons game all the way back on the Nintendo. You sure that wasn't Super Nintendo?
No, it was regular Nintendo. There was actually two games. There was Bart versus the Space Mutants. That was the first one. And the second one that came out was Bart versus the World. And they were both Nintendo games.
Hmm.
But Bart versus the Space Mutants, like level one, you had to go through and get rid of everything that was purple because the mutants were using purple things to power their spaceship or something. And then like level two, you went to the mall and now like, oh, now there's no more purple things. Now we have to use hats.
Use hats. That's so lazy.
Yeah, they're like, oh, now we have to use hats to power our machines. You have to like go through the mall and like knock hats off of people's heads, and it was fucking dumb.
You are remarkable with this memory. Would you know all of this if you didn't work in a toy store for so long?
Oh yeah, all this stuff was before I worked at the toy store.
You were that much into the fandom. Me too, but I wish I could remember it like you.
Played a lot of Nintendo, man. That's my list. That's all I got. This is my personal collection of top five, bottom five. And man, the bottom five hurt because to your point, you spent all your money as a kid on these games, only to get it home and see it was a complete shit show. It was a sad time.
Yeah. Well, I want to hear from the audience. I want to hear what we didn't mention. Write it in. Use that Twitter X thing we talked about at the beginning of the show. Use that toomuchcgi.com website. Send it in. But if you send it in, you haven't told a friend, I'm going to delete it. So tell a friend, then send it in. You're going to ask, how do I know? I know. I watch all of you. When you think nobody's watching, I'm there.
You're like Santa Claus.
I was thinking more like fairy godfather or, Good Samaritan.
Yeah, I could have said like Leisure Suit Larry. Remember those video games for the computer?
Oh my God. You know what? That's a whole nother thing. I had a buddy whose dad had one, and we were trying to figure out how to boot it into some old Apple because we thought we
Damn.
might see a naked video game character. Unbelievable.
8-bit titties. 8-bitty titties.
We are going off the rails tonight. All right, let me get through the news. We don't have too much news going on, but there's a few things here. Out of the blue, I didn't see this coming. New Ghostbusters movie called Frozen Empire. Trailer drops. Paul Rudd's still in it.
Yeah. I knew the movie was coming for sure. I was surprised at the trailer drop, though. That kind of came out of the blue. Teaser trailer. Longer than most teaser trailers, but it looks like it's going to be pretty good.
I guess I'm like, wait a minute. We could have had everybody back if Bill Murray would just agree to do these movies in the last 30 years, and now he's in this one again.
Yeah, he's in this one. Dan Aykroyd's in there. Ernie Hudson's in there. Yep.
Egon's gone, but Egon was probably dying to do Ghostbusters 8, 9, 10. So then a article came out from Ghostbusters News. You sent this to me. Ghostbusters Frozen Empire, the latest addition to the Ghostbusters franchise, draws significant inspiration from the real Ghostbusters, the animated series. Kumail Nanjiani, a new member of the Ghostbusters cast, expressed his enthusiasm for the film and noted the animated series as a key influence, describing it as a point of reference for the filmmakers. He revealed that their intention was to create what felt like an extended episode of the animated series. The teaser trailer for Frozen Empire has received positive response, indicating a fresh approach to the nearly 4-decade-old franchise. The film, set to release on March 29th, features a mix of returning stars like Paul Rudd, Bill Murray, Dan Aykroyd, Ernie Hudson, and Annie Potts, along with newcomers like the aforementioned Nanjiani, Patton Oswalt, James A. Caster, I don't know him, and Emily Allen Lind. I guess they're the kids. They're going to turn this into a universe, spin it off. It's not even going to feel like the 1984 thing anymore. I don't know. I want to see it. Like, I'm into it. I liked Afterlife.
You know what though? I feel like this is almost feeling like it's back in the 1980s. Like the color saturation, the clothing that people are wearing on the beach there. It looks like they're like on like Coney Island or Long Island, like at the beach
Mm-hmm.
before the everything freezes over. And they're playing like Cruel Summer by Bananarama. So it felt like it was taking place in the 80s.
Yeah, the trailer did have that vibe. It just had like sharp HD, you know? It needed like old shitty film stock.
Yeah, that's true. But yeah, I'm excited for it. I definitely want to go see it.
How about Taika Waititi saying there's no hard feelings if Marvel makes Thor sequel without him? Taika says, it's okay. It's okay. Well,
Good on you, mate. Good on you.
it's it's okay. We're in an open relationship.
Oh,
He has no ill will towards Marvel or the talent he worked with on Thor Ragnarok and Thor Love and Thunder, stating, but I do love Marvel. I love working with them. I love Chris Hemsworth. He doesn't mind that they being the MCU, is going to continue and make Thor 5 without Taika Waititi. There is the story. And Taika doesn't mind. He says, we're in an open relationship, and it's like if they want to see other people, I'm happy for that. I'd still get back into bed with them any day.
I was going to say, it sounds like a guy leaving the door open for a return.
Yeah.
Did they announce Thor 5? Or is this like all hypothetical?
I don't know. I don't think they did announce it. I think it's not really announced, but I guess, it's still going to happen because they didn't quite close Thor down properly.
Gotcha. Yeah, people did not care for Love and Thunder.
Me neither. I hated it. As much as I adored Ragnarok, this one was as bad as the other one was good. I hated it. I tried to watch it again. I still hated it. I've heard people say it's not as bad as you think. Watch it again. I tried. It was as bad as I remembered.
Yeah.
Those friends are not my friends anymore. So I'm so glad you watched that Loki show. You said his name was Kiwi Kwan. I don't know how to pronounce Kwan. Kwan?
It's Kiwi Kwan.
It's really Kiwi. Okay. I got to learn how to say it because he's going to be around forever. So Kiwi Kwan, known for his recent Oscar-winning role in Everything Everywhere All at Once, enthusiastically discussed his character in the Marvel series Loki on Disney Plus, which has just concluded its second season. Kwan plays Ouroboros, or OB, the head of repairs and advancement department of the Time Variance Authority. Kwan's performance in Loki was influenced by his childhood roles in Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom and The Goonies. He sees his character, Ouroboros, as a variant of Data from The Goonies, drawing parallels between the two characters. He also discussed the technical challenges of delivering I can't even deliver the sentence, of delivering Ouroboros' dialogue and how Hiddleston helped him master it. And then it goes on to say, like, he really didn't have much in Hollywood outside of The Goonies. He did a little stint as an assistant action choreographer on X-Men, but now all of a sudden he's back in the mainstream. And he was, I guess I'm putting this in not so much to be like, hey, this guy was in the news. I just want to talk about this guy a little bit because I loved him in Loki. Every scene he was in, I was rooting for him. There's just a joy this guy brings to the screen for me.
I do love like his innocent delivery and like his, you said it, man, his pure joy of like, he's like, you're Victor Timely? Like that was like his awe and like his wonder. Like I could see it very much being a grown up version of Data from the Goonies.
Yeah.
It's fantastic. I love it.
Very cool. I love when he opened, when Ouroboros opened the box full of time manuals. and how that paralleled to when he was on his other planet, when, the real planet where he came from, and he was a failed novelist. And if you notice, you actually see Ouroboros kind of go, this feels familiar, like almost like he felt something with that.
Yeah.
And just the kid could play. He's not even a kid. He's a guy. He's probably our age. He could play off just that look. I hope he's back in Hollywood because he's a good actor.
He seems to be in high demand, and he's been in great roles since he's come back in. You mentioned Everything Everywhere All at Once. I mean, he's winning awards. He's at award shows. He's getting his Goonies pals to come out and congratulate him, and it's fantastic, man. Love it.
Kiwi Kwan. I've never said his name out loud ever in my life until this moment. Thankfully, it's easier to say than, because I am so bad with if your name isn't John Smith, I'm probably going to butcher your name. I can barely get my own name out. All right, we got one more story. This one was also sent by you, Scott, and my wife, and pretty much everybody who listens to our show. They say, Bill, there's a fuck-uppery.
I will not consider this a fuck-uppery.
I don't either. What's the story here? Why don't you do this one?
So Homer's going to continue to strangle Bart. While what we reported last week was a line in The Simpsons, and while news magazines did report that they're changing their ways with child abuse in their animated series, it's coming out by showrunners that, yeah, that was a line in the show, but everything's staying the same. Homer's still going to strangle Bart.
Yeah.
It was just a thing he said, maybe to save face in front of the new neighbor. It was just a line. They're not going to change anything as far as the strangulation of father and son.
So the story that I read last week, somebody just ran with it and said that it was a whole thing based on this and that and this, and it was nothing like that.
That's what I got from it. I mean, they were like, I think they read more into that one line saying that times have changed. I don't do that anymore. They read into that saying like that was the writers saying they're not going to continue doing this, but there was never any such meeting implied. It was just a throwaway line that Homer said to Marge, again, to save face in front of a new neighbor, possibly.
Remember, ladies and gentlemen, never believe us. Never believe anybody. Trust no one. Everybody lies.
It's true.
Oh, my God. Yeah, I think it was Albert Brooks. He's like, oh, we never said we were going to stop doing it. He's just like shaking his head. But yeah, somebody ran with that and I read it. So now I look like a jackass.
Oh, well, it's on the internet. Not everything you read on the internet's true.
What?
Yeah, it's a fact.
What?
It's a fact.
What? All right, let's wrap it up, Scott.
This was a fun episode. Thanks for listening. I always enjoy talking about, this could be a continuation of the mini series of things we played with as kids. It's always going to take a break from underdogs trying to stick it to the man. We were getting kind of heavy, kind of deep here these past two episodes with Killdozer and Captain Midnight, or also Max Headroom. But talking about Nintendo, I can do this every week. So thanks for listening. Bill, great idea for a topic, and we'll see you next week.